Our next guest is a very interesting young man, and the last time he was with us, I was away for a couple of days. But I know about him. He's made an international name for himself as an actor, and more recently through his play, Fortune in Men's Eyes, as a director. And Ozzie and Harriet, I know that you're both familiar with this young man's work.
Yes, we know him.
So let's all get together and greet Sal Mineo. There are special people who get this kind of a reaction when you say their name. You get that.
I look like Lester's brother, that's what.
How is the play doing in New York?
Fantastic, thank you. It's really doing very well. Last time I was on your show, we talked about it very briefly, in fact. And the surprising thing was that immediately after the show was aired, a lot of women came to see the play, and they said they had heard me talking about it on your show. And which was strange because of the subject matter. We were very surprised that this kind of thing would not so much attract that kind of an audience, but that women would have, the guts to go out and see this kind of a play.
Excuse me, for the benefit of those who may not know what the play is about, refresh us, will you?
Basically, it deals with what happens to a 17-year-old boy who's sentenced to prison, and the mental and physical brutality that he's subjected to. It does go on today, and all of this that you see on stage is an accumulation of factual things that have happened in prison. And it's pretty shocking, frankly. And I was very pleased.
There's been a lot of publicity about it.
Yeah,
about what's going on in prisons.
As a result of the play, and I think this is one of the areas that I feel very proud of, is that aside from it being an entertaining show and it being theater, it's caused a lot of people to all of a sudden stand up and say, now wait a minute, is this actually happening in today's prisons? I mean, our kids, kids who are sentenced to very minor, for minor crimes, are exposed to this kind of thing, being sent to prison with men that are hardened criminals.
And then the play is making the impact that you thought it would.
It's causing that kind of reaction, which is kind of exciting because you can't turn away from it.
And when an actor, and a good actor, because you're a very good actor. In fact, all I can think of when I look at this young fellow is the picture you did with Jimmy Dean. Was it Rebel?
Rebel Without a Cause.
Yeah.
You and he were fantastic.
Mike, I don't want to break into a serious discussion, but Sal was up to Dave's house one time. It was a birthday party or something, and he told, speaking about prisons, and Sal told a story that I never forgot, and I just reminded him of it. Tell it, why don't you tell it? He's tell the story, so great.
Well, strangely enough, when I was ready to do the play, to direct the play, I went to various prisons to, get research, and of course it was very depressing in the beginning.
Oh, yes.
I went to San Quentin, and I sat in the cell with a man who had been in prison for 35 years. Strangely enough, as depressing as it was, he told the story to me. 35 years. And, when he told me that, of course, my mouth dropped, and he said, yeah, it's a long time, isn't it? The cell is about this big, and they spend 23 hours a day in the cell. And 1 hour a day they're allowed to walk in front of the cell. Now, mind you, with this kind of thing going on in his head, there was a sense of humor that he had. And he told me the story about this prisoner who was in jail, and his mother came to see him. And the mother came and she said, my boy, I don't understand you. You go out and you buy a gun and you shoot people and then you go rob. But what kind of a boy I bring you up to be? I give you a nice home. He says, hey, Ma, look, first of all, we're not Italian. It's a heavy prison sandwich.
Ozzie and Harriet and I were talking about the generation gap. Do you think it's beginning to break down?
Frankly, no. I think it's getting bigger.
Somebody referred to it the other day. I can't remember who, as a gulch. Who was it?
Really not.
Grady not
As
call
a
it a
gulch.
gulch, Generation Gulch.
Well, I think I'm very fortunate in a sense that I'm 30 years old. I'm sort
You
of
shouldn't
right in
smoke.
between.
Oh, you go to camp this year, don't you?
You're on the cusp. You're on the ragged
Yeah,
edge.
you're gonna fall off.
I don't know who's going to send me to one. But no, it's kind of a groovy age because I went through the 50s, that era, which was a whole era in itself, and it's changed completely. So, in a sense, I can still communicate with the young generation, the below 30s, and still can sit and have a conversation with
Yeah.
you, and you're
That's
over
kind of an
30.
enviable position, isn't it?
Interesting. Being in that position, I find that no, the gap is much bigger. I think what's happening now is that the younger people have decided, rather than trying to penetrate and trying to make older people understand, they're saying, forget it, it doesn't work. Let's yes them a bit and say, yeah, right, you're hip to us and you like our dancing and you like our music, but you really don't understand a thing. And so it's gotten to be a much wider gap, and yet there's less overt gap. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
In other
but-
words, it's a lot subtler now.
We travel with different crowds because I don't feel that.
Really?
No,
No.
I don't understand some of the fashions. I'm trying to, but now days I can't walk in and buy clothes like I used to. I don't want to be ridiculously silly to be so up with it, and I don't want to be like day before yesterday either. But I find with the basics, I really don't have any problem with younger people. I mean, I'm talking like 18, 19, and 20. Because I understand what it is. It's an honesty. It's a basic honesty that they're trying for. And to use one of their expressions, I really dig it.
Well, don't you think, too, that it's very easy from the standpoint of people who are quite young to look at the generation that has preceded them, not only this present thing, but when I was a kid, and later on as you move on and your own children look at you, I think it's always easy to see the faults of the generation that's getting a little bit older, and I think that that's what makes...
quarterbacking.
No, I think that's what makes progress. Because I think everything is better today. The music is better today. The acting is better today. The kids are smarter. And by the same token, the next generation will take the experience of the preceding generation and build on that. I think there always has been a gap, but I think the one keynote to all of it is that the young people of today have brought to our minds that enough of this hypocrisy. Let's try and deal with the truth from here on in.
Are the two age groups really being totally honest with each other?
I can't see. I can't buy all of that. Maybe I do travel in different circles, but the point is, I don't travel in circles. I don't have a particular circle. I don't think the honesty is what the newspapers and magazines make it out to be, what the articles make it out to be. I think that we have committed a grave sin by forcing the younger generation to have to suppress themselves with us, and as a result, we have split up into so many organizations. For instance, it's a proven fact now that violence does achieve the goal. If it weren't
But
for...
it's wrong.
I know it's wrong. I am opposed to
So
violence.
wrong.
But it's a proven fact that when there is violence, the blacks all of a sudden, because of violence, have suddenly are getting some of their rights in this nation. The Vietnam War, it wasn't the older people. By no way was it the older people who brought it out into the open. It was the younger people who had to go and demonstrate and have their heads kicked in. And now all of a sudden Life magazine will show pictures of the Vietnamese atrocities. But it's the younger people that are doing it, and we're forcing them into doing it in ways that have violent connotations, the demonstrations and all of that. They're the ones that are doing it. We're not out there demonstrating,
Well,
getting
Sal,
our
you
heads
know,
kicked.
when you say atrocities, you know that there are atrocities. being perpetrated upon our servicemen, too. You know about that, don't you?
In any, of course,
You know
we
that,
should
you
not
know
be
that small
there.
children throw grenades into groups of our soldiers.
Exactly, but war breeds war, hate breeds hate. And what they've been trying to say is that it's not a matter of who is getting killed or who's killing who. The fact is we are killing each other. What difference does it make?
Pardon me, you know, Mike, the one thing I meant to tell, I've often wondered, as long as we're on that subject, I've often wondered, we are sitting down talking in Paris, or have been for the last year, whatever it is, to the Viet Cong. Now, the way the war can end is if Russia stops furnishing supplies to North Vietnamese, the war will stop within 3 months. I wonder why, since we have a quid pro quo that we could relate to Russia with, why aren't we talking to Russia? Because if that were stopped, I don't know why we're talking to the Viet Cong. We're never going to get anywhere there. But if we talk to Russia and Russia stops supplying the Viet Cong, the war has to die of its own weight. It has to fall apart. You've talked to a lot of people on your show about it. Has anybody ever espoused such a thought?
Not that I can recall. We're coming right back. Sal Mineo, everybody.